plants are the halophytic sauce-tolerant plant species, of which there are more than 12 families and 18 species worldwide. Accumulations of the mangrove trees in an area makes up a mangrove habitat, mangrove swamps, and the mangrove forest. But how can we differentiate between the mangrove and the other plants in this earth?
These are the adaptations in mangrove. Mangrove can live and survive in the area of the freshwater and the saltwater conditions, unlike most other species plant. Mangrove trees can thrive in the hot, muddy, salty conditions that will quickly kill most of the plant. They have adapted a unique filtration system that allows them to remove most of the salt from them, and the leaf will excrete the excess salt, which allows them to survive in this challenging condition. Most plants can easily take the oxygen from the gases trapped within the surrounding soil, but for mangrove fruit, this is not an option, and they need the access to the air. Not only are the mangrove roots underground, they are also flooded with the water up to 2 times a day. These unique environments allow for the evolutions of the variety of the special structure that help the underground roots gain the access to the air even when submerged by the tide. For example, the pneumatophore that help the tree gain the access to the oxygen even when the roots are partially submerged. These are the 3 types of mangrove.
Mangrove forests are considered a hardy plants given their ability to survive in the high saline water and the low oxygen soil. Despite this hardiness, mangrove cannot withstand a cool temperature and they can only be found in the tropicals and the subtropical zone. However, rising the temperatures and the sea level due to the climate change are allowing these mangrove to expand their range farther away from equator, which they will further move to inland. Mangrove habitat cover a combined 3/4 of the world's tropical coastlines area of 52,300 square miles in the American, African, Australia, and Asia, with the Southeast Asia hosting the greatest diversity with the 42% of the mangrove cover.
Like coral reef, mangrove forests are essential to provide numerous goods and services both to the marine environment and human use. For your information, mangrove is the first line of defense for the coastal communities. So, what mangrove can bring to us? First of all, mangrove can protect the shoreline from damaging storm, hurricane wind, wave, and floods. Next, mangrove also help prevent erosion by stabilizing the sediment with their tangled root system. Erosion refers to the removal of sediment from the shore, resulting in the loss of land and retreating shoreline. The dense root of mangrove help to bind and build the soil. The above ground root slow down the water current and wave speed, thus reduce erosion. They also maintain water quality by filtering pollutant and trapping sediment originating from land. And lastly, they can protect the coral reef from silting up and providing sources of timber, food, and traditional medicine. Mangrove also may have diverse function for the ecosystem, especially on their economic importance. Basically, they can be the home to a large variety of marine species. It is because they are able to provide important habitats and breeding ground for aquatic species, then build the resilience of ecosystem-dependent coastal communities. Next, mangrove forests also serve as nurseries for many fish species, including coral reef fish, and also can act as a spawning and feeding area for the fish. From this fishery sector, it can form an essential source of food for thousands of coastal communities around the world. This makes mangrove forests vitally important to human use and commercial fisheries as well. So, we can see the mangrove forest can guarantee the abundance of seafood and food resources for human consumption. The effort of protecting them not only can preserve biodiversity, but it also help preserve a vital resources to local communities.
Because how crucial mangrove had been to humanity and everything on Earth, naturally, a disruption in their activity will ensue chaos. Centuries of exploiting Earth's resources has taken its toll on our mangrove, as issues related to mangrove arise because of man's folly, and these issues are not meant to be taken lightly. Deforestation and logging had been contributing to widespread destruction of mangrove forests. According to Marine Species Assessment Unit's analysis, over 1 in 6 mangrove species are threatened with extinction. coastal development might as well be the number one threat to mangroves. This is because man-made structures now replace deforested area. Said structure like a resort, coal-fired power plant or dam bring about inevitable issues of altered hydrology, pollution and erosion. For example, distribution of water salinity in mangrove area will be disrupted while also changing local water's temperature, sedimentation and filtration. Mangrove ecosystem would collapse because of sudden shift in habitat's environment as they are not adapted to the new change. Increase in erosion will also happen. Sediments in the river will increase in amount and overcome mangroves' filtering ability, leading to the forest getting smothered. What was before the ultimate anti-tsunami system will be destroyed. Other than that, development and deforestation is often associated with pollution too. In recent years, mangrove's biggest threats were tourism industry's development, pollution runoff of fertilizers and pesticides, and improper waste disposal. These toxic materials are carried by river system from sources upstream. They are poisonous for flora and fauna living in mangrove forests alike. Conversion of mangrove area into aquaculture spot also contributes to the pollution. In shrimp farming, 3 to 6 months was took to grow a market-sized shrimp, and a steady stream of organic waste, chemicals and antibiotics from the farm can pollute groundwater or coastal estuaries. These have lasting effect on wetland ecosystem as they alter the hydrology that provided its foundation.
Moreover, changes in climate may also affect mangrove, but in complex ways. Sea level rise is a major potential climate change threat to mangrove ecosystems because mangroves are sensitive to changes in inundation duration and frequency, as well as salinity levels that exceed a species-specific physiological threshold of tolerance. Changes in sea level will alter flooding patterns, the structure, and aerial extent of mangrove. Increases in flooding duration can lead to a plant death at the seaward mangrove margins, as well as shift in species composition, ultimately leading to a reduction in productivity and ecosystem services. Coastal flooding is expected to increase in the future because global sea levels have risen by 3.2 millimeters per year over recent decades, although some places are already seeing even more drastic change. If this continues to happen, mangrove forests will be in danger of dying out when sea level rise by more than 6 millimeters per year.
So, based on these issues, how can we help our mangroves? In these modern days, creating awareness among people has become more and more easy through social media.
You do not need to write a full complex article waiting for it to be published by a local newspaper and magazine to reach hundreds of thousands of people nowadays. Simply by clicking here and there on your smartphone, you are now able to reach more people than what you can imagine, educating and encouraging them to care more on our mangrove. Be creative. That's the way to catch people's attention on your message you are trying to deliver.
It can be a short documentary, colorful poster, infographics, comics, pictures, or a short article.
Use layman language so that everyone can understand what's going on in our mangrove forest. As an individual, the other way we can learn, care more, and understand our mangrove is by volunteering.
Volunteering will connect us closer to mangrove nature. While volunteering, we can help to replant mangroves, do cleanups, and learn more about mangrove from experts. This knowledge then can be shared to other people. There are lots of NGOs that open recruitment to dedicated volunteers to help them save and preserve our mangrove.
What is the strength of the individual? The community also plays an important role to help conserve the mangrove ecosystem. Communities rely on this habitat, so they are much prone to the effect. One of the ways they could do is provide nature guide to tourists while visiting mangrove sites. As more people coming into the habitat, most of the time destruction or pollution will occur due to the lack of awareness by some people, especially tourists. It is the responsibility of the community to provide them with knowledge and understanding firsthand by the community itself. This knowledge also applies to the people working inside the mangrove. It is better to use best practice in exploiting natural resources to avoid damaging or overexploiting the flora and fauna. In return, they could sustain the mangrove area for many more generations. The resources available within the mangrove ecosystems are plenty. The community could learn to recreate or produce mangrove-based products and create a socio-economic community. With all this effort, they will respect and appreciate what the natural habitat could provide, and they will have a reason to protect it.
Then, how about the government? The Malaysian government has taken initiative to protect the mangrove area since the 1980s. However, despite all the efforts taken, the population of mangrove is still showing a declining pattern. This is due to the lack of law enforcement, as the implementation does not always match the policy that has been enforced. Study has proven that state governments often prioritize development and revoke the status of forest reserve. Therefore, powerful laws and good governance systems are needed to ensure the success of every conservation by imposing heavy penalties on whoever violated the laws. Next, conservation of mangrove could be enhanced by gazetting all the remaining mangrove areas. Malaysia's mangrove forests cover an area of 577,500 hectares. However, only a small portion of the total mangrove covers is totally falling within legally gazetted as protected areas, while the rest are left unprotected. By protecting this ecosystem, we are not only preserving the rich biodiversity but also sustain the livelihood of the local communities. One of the most successful mangrove conservations can be seen from the Matang Mangrove Forest Reserve project in Perak. It was known as the best managed mangrove forest in the world, with more than 100 years of management. Their key of success is through the manifestation of the successful ecological forest management practices. And last but not least, to ensure the sustainability and success of this project for a long term, continuous financial support is crucially important to help in implementing and maintaining the existing restoration areas. Funding is also needed in order to conduct further research and studies on mangrove conservation assessment, which are important to increase the understanding of mangrove ecosystem functions, as well as to find a better alternative to manage this ecosystem sustainably.
Unfortunately, the mangrove forest has lost more than 35% of their area for the past 2 decades. Today, mangroves are more endangered than any other ecosystem on this planet. Conservation of the mangrove is important for the survival of the mangrove species, human, and also for the survival of the two other habitats, which is the coral reef and the seagrass bed. This is to ensure that all the ecosystem services provided by them can be benefited to the human and as well as other living organisms in this earth.